Ellen White's writings. But medical students from Loma Linda wrote Ellen White and asked, you said in the councils that we shouldn't use drug medications, they're poisons. Does that mean the medications like mercury, arsenic, laudanum, which is opium, and antimony, and these types of things, which is what we are calling medications in her day? She says, yes, these are toxins and poisons, don't use them. She was not talking penicillin. That didn't exist in her day. Okay? But many people don't translate and think about the applications as times change to her wording. In fact, there was a guy, a missionary, who took his family to Southeast Asia, and his son got malaria. And while there, the doctors wanted to give the son quinine. But, what? Quinine. That's how you say it here? Quinine. Quinine. Okay? In the States, it's quinine. Okay? Yeah, quinine. And this man wouldn't let that, because of the councils, would not allow it. And the boy died. This missionary had a one-on-one with Ellen White and asked her, would I have sinned to allow them to give the quinine if there was no other way that we knew how to help them, even though in the council you said don't use the drug medications? And she said, no, you would not have sinned. We must do the best we can with what we have. Okay? And so many people, when it comes to Ellen White's writings, they think on a level where they're afraid to think, so they surrender their thinking to a guide list, a rule book, and the rule book says, I can't use that, so don't use it because the prophet said don't use it. That is not how God wants us to function. But I will tell you this much. If you're convinced in your heart that you shouldn't use coffee, don't drink the coffee. Because if you drink the coffee, this is Romans chapter 14. Those who have mature spirituality can eat anything they want. Those who are immature should eat only vegetables. So if you are drinking coffee but you feel guilty like you're sinning, then you're going to activate your amygdala, you're going to cause an inflammatory cascade, and you're going to undermine your sense of well-being. So you shouldn't drink it, even though a person with mature character can drink it and not have any guilt at all. So I hope that helps. Yes?
Hi, I just wanted to ask about inflammation, because you mentioned it quite a lot in the talk today, and there's a lot about the keto diet and a lot on the media at the moment about not having carbohydrates and not having dairy and a lot of other things because they cause inflammation. Did you have any thoughts about that?
Right. So the food choices, where you go back to the food question over here earlier, the food choices absolutely can cause inflammation. Junk foods, fast foods, pizzas, croissants, donuts, burgers, fries, all those things highly inflammatory and increase the inflammatory stress in the body, whereas a plant-based whole food diet does not. When we talk about carbohydrates, it depends on where you're getting them. Eating apples, carbohydrates in that. No negative consequence of that. Drinking the pomegranate juice, there's carbohydrates in that. Very healthy for you to do. So it's not simply avoid carbs and eat lots of fat. That actually is probably not very healthy in the long run. It's really having food sources that are more whole and natural and moving away from the highly processed stuff. That's the key. Yes?
You've talked about the brain and dementia and other lifestyle diseases. What can you tell us about the research that's been done about the brain and schizophrenia?
So what research are you referring to?
Whether diet, exercise, stress has anything to do with it.
So schizophrenia is not a single disease. First thing you need to understand about schizophrenia. Schizophrenia is not a single disorder. It is a plethora of problems that have a similar symptomology, but the underlying causes are varied, and we haven't disentangled all those potential causes. Underlying causes. Children whose mothers have certain infections during pregnancy have higher rates of schizophrenia. Those infections cause changes in brain structure that increase the risk later in life of schizophrenia. Children who sometimes during intrauterine development, they look at the brain of people with schizophrenia, and the neurons during fetal development did not migrate to the proper place in the brain where they're supposed to migrate to. It increases the risk of schizophrenia. Recently, it was discovered that certain women had developed antibodies to a specific cancer, and those antibodies to that cancer were actually interacting with the brain, causing schizophrenic-like syndromes. And when they did plasmapheresis and cleared those antibodies, the psychosis went away, but they had been diagnosed with schizophrenia because it looked like schizophrenia, but it was really this other disorder looking like it. And so I think schizophrenia So the data on inflammation, stress, and all these types of things, if you're vulnerable to schizophrenia, it's going to push you in that direction. But we still don't have a good handle on all the underlying pathological reasons why people get schizophrenia. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to ask a question about effect on the brain for electrical currents. You know, in your house you have a meter box sort of connected to the house. So can you get those brainwave things come through?
So I have not researched that question to the point to give a meaningful answer.
Yes, there is an increase in the kids with mental issues, like what was the name of this sickness of the brain? Autism, and the other is start with A.
ADHD?
No.
Asperger's?
Asperger. Yeah, I'm interested in Asperger because my grandson in United Kingdom, he has that, so I would like to have information about.
So I'm not a child and adolescent psychiatrist. I'm an adult psychiatrist.
Well, he's 20 by now, and it's developed last year.
Then it's not Asperger's or autism. If it developed last year and he's 21, it's not Asperger's or autism. Asperger's and autism does not develop when you're 21. It's a developmental disorder that happens in childhood, and you can still have it when you're 21, and it persists into adulthood, but it doesn't begin when you're... So if he didn't have it before he's 21, it's not Asperger's. And if they're saying it's Asperger's or autism, then he's been misdiagnosed if it just appeared at age 21 as something else. So he needs to go back and get reevaluated. But Asperger's and autism, I don't have a lot to say about that. I will tell you, though, that there's no relationship between immunizations and Asperger's and autism. Zero relationship. Zero relationship. It's proven beyond, and I mean, it's been researched in the nth degree. There is no relationship. That's a fantasy online scam by a certain segment of a very educated green group of people, but it's not science and it's not reality. I will tell you also about Asperger's and autism. They have upregulated amygdalas that interfere with socialization. They're fearful and anxious, and they have reduced oxytocin receptors in their amygdalas. And so in my practice, my adult patients with these types of disorder, I give them intranasal oxytocin, which significantly improves their socialization. Their social anxieties drop substantially. And if you do it earlier in childhood while the brain remains pliable, it has a much better long-term change as their brain is still developing. Their socialization networks improve. So I would tell you to talk to your doctors about getting intranasal oxytocin for anybody that has autism or Asperger's disorder. It will significantly help them. Other questions?
Are there any effects on the brain when a baby is born premature, and if they're more prone to mental illness?
Yes, yes, and yes.
And if the baby hasn't had the opportunity to receive much physical touch early on?
Significant impairments, yes. So prematurity increases your risk of ADHD later in life. Prematurity without a lot of physical touch can upregulate amygdala, increasing anxiety disorders, mood disorders, and social impairments later in life. The physical touch actually helps the circuits of the brain that calm the amygdala develop. And so, in fact, Frederick the Great, you probably know the story of Frederick the Great, the emperor of Germany years ago, wanted to discover what the biologically prime language of humanity is. And so he devised this study where these children were taken from their mothers at birth and were raised in a sterile type environment, i.e. no one spoke any language to them, no one touched them, no one held them. They had to change them with instruments and everything else like that because he had the belief that the prime language was German. Okay, and that was going to be. But what happened is all the children died. Because without touch, without the love, without the affection, the ability to actually thrive is destroyed, and they die. Okay. Yes.
Just a quick one, Tim, about the coffee. Was that coffee black coffee?
Yes.
No, so milk coffee doesn't count?
So the studies were on black coffee. So yes, that's what the studies were done on black coffee.
My question, Tim, is that I was told by someone that the brain doesn't age at all. And I was thinking about that, and I think, yeah, well, I'm this age now, and I feel like that I'm still in my early 20s, brain-wise. You know, I think I can still do things that I did when I was 20. But then I was thinking, surely the rest of our body decays, so surely our brain would do the same?
So I think the person might have been conflating two ideas, and they might have meant your mindset, that as you age, you still feel young at heart, so to speak. And many people, when they're 60 or 70, still feel youthful and vibrant and so forth. But no, their brain is definitely not the brain they had when they were 20. Any part of their body is. No, aging is happening. There's no question. So the brain is aging, but the people can still have a youthful mindset or youthful heart. Yes.
Just checking, is there any connection between insulin resistance and high fructose diet?
Yes. High fructose diet increases your risk. Fructose, like high fructose corn syrup, and I was really happy to see here in your country that the various drinks you have don't have high fructose corn syrup. And I think U.S. is about the only that does it still. It's ridiculous, I got to tell you. But it's 10 times more oxidizing than sugar. So you can have a soft drink and soft drinks are not healthy, okay? But you could have a soft drink with high fructose corn syrup in it, or you could have 10 with sugar in it, and that's the same oxidative stress. So,
what I meant was fruit diet.
Oh, fructose, not high fructose corn syrup.
So high fruit diet.
No, not high fruit. Fruit's very healthy. You eat as much fruit as you want. Fruit, more berries, the more antioxidant. The more whole fruits that you eat, the more antioxidants. That's good stuff.
You mentioned earlier on about no crosswords. I'm a bit disappointed. Do you have...
No. I didn't say don't do crosswords. I'm saying crosswords are not useful in preventing dementia. But they can be fun. There's no harm in doing them. But they're not going to actually prevent dementia. So no questions about all the Bible stuff we talked about this week, and only brain stuff.
Sorry, thank you for the presentation. I just wanted to go back to coffee, and I wonder if you would agree with me. I wouldn't like people to leave this place today thinking that drinking coffee, any coffee, is so good for them. We were talking about preventative measures, right? And we were talking about dementia. And we were talking about a certain set of studies showing the results on dementia. We are not talking about people with diabetes or cardiovascular diseases.
No, we are. No, actually, no. No, you're wrong. The studies of the New England Journal, and it's been repeated in several studies, with over 100,000 people involved, followed for multiple years. Coffee consumption reduces all-cause mortality, including type 2 diabetes, Parkinson's disease, Alzheimer's disease, cardiovascular disease. All causes are reduced.
All-cause mortality.
Yes.
There are studies that we're doing at the University of Adelaide showing that caffeine can also flush out a lot of potassium.
Yes, caffeine, high caffeine. Caffeine in any other source other than green tea was harmful. So are you looking at caffeine in black coffee, or you're looking at caffeine by itself?
By itself.
Well, there you go.
So there's
not the same thing.
But still, I think people can get... Yes, but still, people can get all sorts of different quality of coffee. There are studies showing that coffee can be full of mold, that coffee is different quality.
Sure.
Definitely supermarket coffee and the coffee
and you can get different quality water.
Yes, and it does matter. So all I am saying is that it matters. It is important to read the labels. It matters what kind of coffee it is, and it matters to look at your background and your health history, because it may, yes, it reduces all-cause mortality.
Is Simon in here?
But
he just left. I asked Simon if I should, typically when I speak to Adventist audiences, I leave out the coffee slides. Seriously, Adventist audience can't handle the slides. They can't. I travel all over the world, and non-Adventist audiences, it's not a problem. Every time I present it to an Adventist audience, we get these questions on coffee that just goes around. They just can't tolerate that information.
Look, don't get me wrong, because I am the last person to say that this is not true. I actually agree with you. But I think that we still have to be very, very careful. And people drink whatever type of coffee, whatever quality. And I think it's not the best.
All in moderation.
Doctor, would you repeat what you said you used as a treatment for Aspergillus?
Oxytocin nasal spray.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
What about soft drinks apart from the copious amounts of sugar?
All soft drinks are harmful. Soft drinks with caffeine, soft drinks without caffeine, soft drinks with sugar, soft drinks with artificial sweetener. All soft drinks are harmful. Soft drinks leach calcium out of your bones, increase osteopenia, osteoporosis, increase oxidative stress, increase your risk of dementia. Soft drinks are harmful across the board. So there's no real benefit from drinking soft. Does that mean, though, you can't have a soft drink once or twice a year? Probably is not going to be able to measure an effect there. But people who are regular soft drinkers, unhealthy, bad.
I've got a question that's been bothering me for most of the day and a little bit last night. How do you equate a loving God with stories of Sodom and Gomorrah, with Ananias and Sapphira? You know, we get this imminent judgment that sort of boom, and they've had it.
Thank you. I've been waiting for a Bible question. Thank you for asking that. So how do we understand the Old Testament God, Sodom and Gomorrah, flood, and stories like this with a God of love? It's all context. After Adam and Eve sinned, could the human race be saved without Jesus? No. The human race is going to die unless Jesus comes. And in Genesis 3, God says to the serpent, Satan, the seed of the woman is going to crush your head and you're going to bruise his heel. So Satan now knows that his hold is not secure and a Messiah is coming. Yes? He knows it. Does Satan go on vacation? Or does he get busy trying to stop the plan? Now, can you think of a strategy besides killing every human being in which Satan can keep Jesus from becoming incarnate, stop Jesus from becoming our Savior? Can you think of a strategy? Destroy the world. Without destroying the world. Any other strategy without killing every other human being? How about this? Would God have Jesus born to a woman like Jezebel in character? Yes or no? No. Would God force a woman against her will to be the mother of Jesus? No. So how about if if Satan can get every human being to permanently harden their heart against God? Then what? There's no one for the Messiah to come. You say, well, that's ridiculous. There's a whole population, a whole world of people. It's not going to happen. According to Genesis 6, there was one righteous man left on the earth. Only one. One. Think that through. And the whole population, there's only one still working with God. The rest of the population is no longer working with God. And so God acts. Now, do we see this as, well, he's punishing sin? Or do we see this as him acting at the last moment possible to keep open the avenue for Messiah? Now, if we understand what the punishment for sin is, it becomes very plain. What is the punishment for sin? Which death? First or second? Which death did the people in the flood die? It wasn't punishment for sin. That's eternal death. All those people are going to rise again in one of two resurrections, right? Okay? So this was action to keep open avenue for Messiah. Now, after the flood, God tells Abraham, from your seed is going to be the promised one. Satan no longer has to focus on the whole world to stop the Messiah. He's now got a clue as to which family tree, which branch of the human family the Messiah is going to come from. He only has to destroy one branch of the human family now. And without Sodom, Gomorrah, and the 5 other cities, there were 7 of them, without those 7 cities, by the time Jesus came, how many tribes were left? 2. 10 tribes have already been gone. So my view is that God excised the least amount of the necrosis of pagan fertility cult worship in that part of the world that was necessary in order to allow the avenue for the Messiah to remain intact for Christ to come. Now, has the world become a nicer place since Christ? We have no Pol Pots, no Hitlers, no Stalins, no Neros, or have we had just as much horrible wickedness as before? But do we see God wiping out cities and so forth? No. Why? Because Messiah has come and achieved his mission. So when I look at the Bible, I look at contextually the larger landscape of what's happening, and I realize that what was happening in the Old Testament, first of all, it's all first death experience. And so you can conceptualize this. What did God do for them? He froze them in time. He put them in time out. He suspended animation. They are just sleeping, waiting to be awoken. Now, I'm going to speculate with you here now, so I'm not taking a hard line on this next part I'm about to say to you, okay? I'm going to speculate a little bit with you from some things that Jesus said. Jesus said to the people in his day, if the people of Sodom would have seen the miracles that you've seen, and seen the evidence, what did he say would happen? What did he say they would have done? They would have repented. Does that sound like they were permanently hardened? The people of Sodom? He didn't talk about the people of Sodom. So there's this speculation, because if you understand what happens at the end of time, at the end of the 1,000 years, the righteous are coming down from heaven. The New Jerusalem is on earth, and the wicked are raised. A period of time goes by in which the wicked are preparing implements of war. You know the stories, right? You know the references for this. And the gates of the New Jerusalem are open the entire time. Did you know that? Why would that be? And only, if you read Ellen White in Great Controversy, only when they march in mass with Satan leading the van to attack the city, the voice of Christ is heard saying, close the gates. Up until that point, the entire time, the gates have been open. Now, there's no indication anyone goes in. Speculation from Jesus' words, if they saw this, they would have repented. Perhaps they do. I'm not saying they do. My position that I've taken historically is they don't. That everyone outside the city doesn't come in, and the reason the gates are open is to demonstrate that everyone outside the city who died in the flood, who died in Sodom, are outside the city by their own choice voluntarily. And even when the New Jerusalem's on earth and the gates are open, they don't come in. God doesn't keep them out. They don't want to be there. So this is what makes sense to me. Ananias and Sapphira? So Ananias and Sapphira is a different case. What's going on with Ananias and Sapphira? If you actually read the case of Ananias and Sapphira, it doesn't actually say God killed them. It doesn't say that at all. It says they died. Simply, they died. They were, and I will tell you, there's other cultures and other documentation, even in the medical literature, of people who have been confronted by a powerful shaman and have suddenly fallen over and died. So was this an act of God to kill these people? To put them asleep in the first death? Perhaps it was. Was it their own shock at having a confrontation with unbelievable truth that they couldn't handle, and it startled them? And I don't know. We're not told how or why they died, only that they did. And so based on your view of God, you have to read into that. The same type of things people read into. In Genesis, when God made skins for them to cover themselves by, do you know that many people teach that God killed an animal there? Do you know that? You won't find that in Scripture. You also, if you read Ellen White's writings, you'll find that that's actually not true. The first animal killed, she says, was at Adam's hand when he sacrificed the first animal, not at God's hand. So, I mean, seriously, which is harder for God to do, to make a living animal or make a skin? So, but people read into that. They read, he gave him a skin, so he killed an animal, and therefore that animal represents Jesus, so he killed Jesus on the cross. And they kind of extrapolate all that, but it's not actually there. Yes, question.
Going back to the counterfeit.
Wait for the mic. Wait for the mic.
This is sort of parallel to the biblical. Going back to the counterfeit, in nature, when you take a natural vitamin, there's an L form and a DL form.
Right.
They're the synthetic and the natural. The natural migrates in a certain direction, and the body cells know how to grab hold of them and pull them immediately through the cell membrane. A synthetic only absorbs about 18%.
Right.
So
that's very well said.
So when you are looking for your vitamins to supplement, you should be looking for a natural format, which has all the 8 parts of the vitamin E and all the 18 or 19 parts of the vitamin B and etc. made from food. And there are not many companies in the world. And here in Australia, they've actually made it illegal for me to tell you that. Sorry. I do apologise. And I think that's absolutely disgusting. But we have to know that that's where the counterfeit is coming in. So when you go into a commercial concern and look for a supplement, you're probably going to be deceived. There are not many natural forms out there. I've found a couple.
Yeah.
So if they want to come and ask me. I'll tell them where they are.
Thank you. Thank you. Are we ready to wind it up? Yeah. Okay. Thank you all very much.
Thank you so much for coming, and thank you, Dr. Tim, for spending the last 5 presentations and a whole heap of questions. And we really appreciate you coming here and being a part of here and coming to Adelaide. Would you please thank Dr. Tim Jennings one more time? Just a reminder, if you want to continue to learn about the brain, there's a new seminar that's happening called Optimise Your Brain. Starts at 6:15 on Tuesday night. And if that interests you, feel free to come along and learn about this new thing called Optimise Your Brain. Until then, thank you so much for sticking with us throughout the day. Enjoy the rest of your week, and thank you once again for coming. All the best, and God bless.